How did that happen? We're recording already. I can't get a hold of this technology. Hey, everybody, this is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Welcome. We're sorry we're like a day or so late, but it was because of a holiday, and we said we've got to get it in because you were dead on last year with the Super Bowl picks, and so we've got to give our preseason football picks because football starts tomorrow. Are you ready for football, Kenny?
Honestly, it kind of seems crazy that it's already tomorrow. Like it doesn't feel like it outside. Is that just me? Because like for me, it feels like it's still like summer.
Oh yeah, same here. The last couple of days have been really nice, humid. It's hard to believe. I think Dallas is going to just get spanked tomorrow. I'm sorry. I think Tampa is going to come out start really, really strong. But we'll see about that. Big games on Sunday, obviously Sunday night and Monday. So start of a long season, first time in history, right? A 17-game season. What do you think about that?
Honestly, I'm not sure what to think. I feel like it's a big money grab, and it's funny because they were like, "Oh, we'll only do 3 preseason games," but then this week there was nothing. So, like to me, there wasn't the point of that. I don't know. I think it might be interesting. The matchups for that extra game. The only one that I think is very intriguing that like we get as a treat is what was it? The Packers and the Chiefs, I believe. I believe that was one that was as an added bonus. So
yeah. It's an uneven amount of games, which is odd to me, right? Because when I was a kid, it was 14 games, and it went to 16. 16 for a long time, but 17 is just an odd. I don't know. So I guess teams can go 10-7. That just seems odd. You're used to teams making the playoffs at 10-6 or 11-5. So, but we'll get there. Let's go around the horn because I want to get to the Yankees, and then I really want to give you a lot of time and space to give some interesting things about Jeter, and I've got some interesting stats about Ted Simmons from my generation in a bit. But let's go around the horn. What's going on with the Yankees?
The best thing that's happened to them this week is Derek Jeter going into the Hall of Fame. But I don't know. A lot of it is hitting. I just saw a stat that Judge and Stanton combined, like in their last 35 at bats, I think are 1 for 35. The hitting's cooled down. I think some things that are really, to me, like, okay, they're in a funk, they'll get out of it. But there's some things that kind of concern me. Number one, Jameson Taillon seems like he's kind of hit a wall. The guy hadn't pitched in 2 years. I don't know his career stats. I'll have to look this up, but he's probably to career high in innings pitched.
Yeah.
So to me, that's not the best telling of signs because that means that he's not a guy you can really rely on in the postseason. But I think something that let's hear his career high is 191 innings. He's at 138, so he's still a little far off from that. He'll probably come close, but still, he hadn't pitched in 2 years. The Cole thing is interesting. He's not going to get an MRI. He left the game early. They think that they caught something before something got worse. So hoping that that's okay because the Yankees at this point, their path to the World Series has to be through the wild card game. Unless Tampa completely falls off and the Yankees get red hot again, I don't see them winning the division. So I don't really. Their path would be the wild card, but having a guy like Garrett Cole in the wild card game is a huge advantage. Arguably the best pitcher this year in the American League, but if he's not healthy, that's going to be a huge drop off. But to me, one of the biggest issues that I have is the injury that happened to Jonathan Loaizaga. He is now on the 10-day IL with a shoulder strain. Yeah, he's been by as far as reliever WAR. I don't know how many people take huge stock into that. But he actually leads all major league relievers in WAR, which by that measure, he would be the most valuable relief pitcher. David Cohn said something interesting. He likened Loizaga's season to Mariano in '96. Guy you kind of plug in for a couple innings everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the one that concerns me because he also has reached most innings that he's pitched in the season. So it might be a little bit fatigued, but that also doesn't play well in October. Because like that's my concern is like, okay, Zach Britton's out for the year. If Loizaga's not back, aside from Chad Green and Chapman, I don't really trust many other people. Wandy Peralta's been up and down. Lucas Licky's been kind of up and down. Like that's one of the things that I have the biggest issue with, because like every year it seems like the Yankees have done well, but then when it comes to the playoffs, there's only like two guys you can go to in the pen, and Chapman blows it by giving up a big lead, just tired. So I think they'll get the ship righted, but when it comes to making a deep run, they need either Loizaga healthy and also some of these guys to get some bigger moments where they can kind of feel a little more comfortable. Other kind of X factor might be Severino.
Yeah. Is Cole okay?
They're saying right now he's not going to get an MRI. They're calling it hamstring tightness. So I'm going to guess he might be fine. They haven't announced whether or not he's next start yet. And I think that'll kind of be a little bit more telling because at this point he's on track right now to pitch in the wild card game. So throwing him off of that might mess everything up. So I think that'll kind of be the most telling.
Wow. Okay. I think he'll, unless he's, from what I've seen of him these couple of years with the Yankees now, man, unless his arm has fallen off, he'll pitch. I think he's just a really, really great competitor. You mentioned before, and I have another question for you though about the American League, but you mentioned before that Jeter and Stanton had kind of hit a wall. What do you suppose caused that? Is it just they went into a slump? I mean, last week's assignment we were talking about, praising Stanton for playing the outfield and hitting so well. Has that tired him out? What do you think it is? Do you just think they're going to come right out of it?
I think it's just your typical slump.
Okay.
Stanton actually made a really nice play in the out couple nights ago, which I was like, wow, I'm surprised they let him run. But I think it's just kind of the slump, the up and down season. My biggest worry though is sometimes, especially with Stanton, kind of like with A-Rod, where like he starts to get into that slump, he's starting to hear more of the boos, and then it kind of gets more in his head, and kind of the vicious cycle happens.
Are they booing Stanton?
A little bit.
Yankee fans are booing Stanton?
No, but
okay.
Not right now, but give it a couple weeks. If he's like 1 for 60, they'll kind of like they started booing Gary Sanchez pretty early on. But But honestly, no one's booing him now. He's just kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. I think the Yankees will right the ship. I think it's still early September. I mean, we're, what's today, September 8th. So still a good way to go. I mean, but these are big games. I'm loving that. You have the scoreboard watching. Again, it's one of my favorite times of year when they do that. I remember when you were really little, you used to always say, "Hey, I have to see the out of town scoreboard." And so so a question I have for you in the American League, I'll combine them. Marcus Simeon. Oh my gosh. I mean, Oakland couldn't have given him a qualifying offer because the A's have fallen off. Now, I think the A's will be fine, but they've fallen off. And this guy, he's got to be in the mix for MVP, especially if the Blue Jays make it. So are you surprised at the year he's having, and are the Blue Jays for real?
Blue Jays are red hot right now. I believe they won 6 straight, which doesn't help that the Yankees have lost 8 of 10. But I think they might kind of like that a lot of these other teams a hard time. I guess a lot of it depends also on what they do with the Red Sox. I think to have some consider. I wouldn't say if anyone on that team, Marcus Simeon probably won't win MVP. I would probably say Vladdy Jr.
Yeah.
Which actually I know that we're doing Jeter stats, but here's a fun fact. So Vladdy Jr. hit his 40th home run this year.
Wow.
A couple days of Labor Day. Him and his dad became the second father-son duo to hit 40 home runs in a season. Do you know the first one is?
Is it Bonds? Bobby and Barry? No, I don't think Bobby ever hit 40, right? Wow,
No.
that is a great question. And I'm sure Griffey Sr. never hit 40.
Nope.
Wow, that's a good one, man. A father-son that hit 40. I think Bonds actually hit 30. Bobby Bonds hit 39, and he fell short of the 40-40 thing. He would have been the first guy to do 40-40 because he had over 40 stolen bases that year. I don't know, man. Who is it?
Do you want a hint?
Yeah.
This father-son actually finished with the same amount of career home runs.
Wow. I still don't know. They hit 40 and 40, huh? The dad hit 40 and the son hit 40. Not the Burrows, right? I know Jeff Burrows was a big slugger.
Nope.
Sean Burrows didn't last all that long. He had 1 or 2 good years. No, man. Who is it?
Prince and Cecil Fielder.
Oh. See, I never looked at Prince because Prince had that high batting average every year. He was a little bit like Frank Thomas. So I didn't. I forgot that he went over 40 probably more than once because he had that big like looping swing. I definitely know Cecil did that a couple of times, especially when he was with the Blue Jays. That's a good one. That's a great question. All right, let's get to the National League real quick. We got to get Chris P. I know he's going to watch or listen. We got to get him back on. We got to get Larry back on as well. I know he's listening and watching. But Chris P., I think the Mets are doing exactly what he predicted. They're making this run. And, they should have taken at least 4 out of 5 in that series with Washington because, Diaz blew that save on Monday. They should have won that game. And they obviously beat the Marlins yesterday. I mean, they're playing well. There's just these little signs that it's hard for me to picture them in the postseason. They're probably going to continue this run, but after they play the Marlins, these next 2, they play the Yankees for 3 this weekend, which should be a great series. I'm glad they're doing that on 9/11, and then that's the Sunday night game. The spotlight, that used to always be the spotlight when they would play each other. It would always be the Fox game, and so they're back to doing that this year, and it's appropriate, right? That it's New York against on 9/11, nationally televised. So baseball got that right. But then they play the Cardinals, and then they play the Phillies, and the Cardinals have been red hot. They got themselves kind of into the race. So I kind of put the thumbs down thing in the rearview mirror because Lindor's been hitting, and Baez is such an odd player, man. I tell you, he is a spectacular fielder. He's spectacular on the base pass. Since Jose Reyes, I haven't seen anybody as exciting as he is. He takes chances, and he has these unbelievable slides, but his hitting is just all or nothing. I think he's up to like 168 strikeouts. He's had some big home runs. He's got 28 home runs now. But man, oh man, I mean, you have that many strikeouts. You got to hit at least 40, 45 home runs, to kind of cover that up a little bit. I'm wondering how that happened because I looked up a couple of his big years. The year that I think he finished second in the MVP with the Cubs, and he didn't strike out nearly as much as he did before. I don't know how that's happened to him over the years, but anyway, I mean, listen, we'll see. The Braves they hit a rough patch, but they kind of righted themselves a little bit. They had a big comeback win over the weekend against Colorado. The Phillies are red hot. So it's going to at least be a good race, I think, over these next couple of weeks. I like to say as a Mets fan, I have faith that they'll pull it off, but there's just some flaws in this team that's, I like Edwin Diaz in a big spot, man. I just don't know if I could rely on him now, he's had overall a great year, but it's almost a little like Armando Benitez, where he'll fire off like 15, 17 saves in a row, and then the big game, he blows it, Or even John Franco was kind of like that, too. So anyway, but the National League has been, the Dodgers-Giants have been, what a season series that has been. The Padres righted themselves a little bit. So it's exciting. I love this time of year. It's your stomach is in a vice when your team is in it. So you feel the same thing with the Yankees. So anyway, listen. Let's get to the Hall of Fame because Derek Jeter. They wait. It's a little bit weird that it's on a random September Wednesday that the Hall of Fame is happening. But thank goodness, he was able to have his family there and friends. But because I want to give you plenty of time, and I don't want to talk about Ted Simmons second. Let me talk about Ted Simmons real quick first. And so I think Ted Simmons, I'm gonna read you the stats, and I'm gonna do them real quick. A lot of people, when Ted Simmons got nominated by the Veterans Committee, he's 72 years old now, although he doesn't look it at all. There was, how could this guy get in or whatever? He was just an okay catcher. I totally disagree. I really feel like we talked about Bill Freehan a few weeks ago, and Ted Simmons with the Cardinals, who made a ton of All-Star games too, always as Johnny Bench's backup. I think that both those guys just in that era got so overshadowed because Johnny Bench was such a great, great catcher. Set the standard, really, right? You had Yogi Berra years before that, but Bench was just unbelievable. But listen to Ted Simmons' years. These are all with the Cardinals. His first full year was, and now he caught a lot. He played some first base, a little bit of DH when he went to the American League, the Brewers back when they were in the American League. But most of these years are with the Cardinals where he would catch every day. In St. Louis, where it's always blistering hot through the summer. 71 was his first full year. He had 7 homers, 77 RBIs, and he batted .304. 72, 16 homers, 96 RBIs, he batted .303. 73, 13 homers, 91 RBIs, he batted .310. Big year in 74, 20 homers, 103 RBIs, he batted .272. 1975 might have been his best year. He had 18 homers, 100 RBIs, and he batted .332. This is a catcher, catching every day in St. Louis. 76, 5 homers. Homers dropped off. He had a shoulder injury that year. Don't ask me how I remember that. I didn't even have to look that up. But he had a really bad, somebody bowled him over at the plate, and he had a really bad shoulder injury, but he had 5 homers, so his power was off. But he had 75 RBIs, batted .291. 78, 21 homers, 95 RBIs, he batted .318. 79, 78, I skipped a year. 77, 21 homers, 95 RBIs, he batted .318 in 77. 78, 22 homers, 80 RBIs, .287. 79, 26, 87, .283. Last year with the Cardinals, 1980, 21 homers, 98 RBIs, .303. The guy was just unbelievable. Strike year in 1981. So he had a first year with the Brewers, 14 homers, 61 RBIs, batted only .216. 82, the Brewers go to the World Series against the Cardinals, ironically. But he's their catcher, one of their team leaders. 23 homers, 97 RBIs. He batted .269. Last big year was in 1983. 32 years old, which at this time for a catcher who's caught since 1971, almost every game, he had 13 homers, 108 RBIs, and he batted .308. Then he had a couple of more good years with the Brewers. Then he bounced. He didn't really bounce around. I think he finished with the Braves a couple of years. He retired when he was maybe about 36 because his knees were finally shot. The guy absolutely I was always surprised over the years he got overlooked for the Hall of Fame normally. He had to get nominated by the Veterans Committee. The guy was a spectacular catcher. He was a rock. He was steady. The Cardinals in the 70s, it was strange. They always had good teams, but they always fell short. It wasn't until 82 when they got back to the World Series. They got to the World. They obviously had those great teams in the 60s. And then they went all of the 70s. And I bet I could look this up. I doubt if they had even a losing record any of those years in the 70s. They just never got past the Pirates. They were in the National League East back then. But Simmons was just a steady rock player for them. And those stats for a catcher, especially then, Johnny Bench was the excuse the expression, benchmark, and I think his career just so overshadowed, just like Mike Piazza, Gary Carter even kind of overshadowed someone like Javi Lopez for the Braves all those years, who had a lot of big offensive seasons, But anyway, so that's it. Ted Simmons, 100% deserving. It's just too bad he had to wait till he's 72 years old. Thank goodness he's still alive to be nominated by the committee. He should have been in as a regular player. Maybe not on the first ballot, but he definitely deserved to be in. And by the way, he was a Gold Glover several years. He was a great defensive catcher as well. So anyway, Derek Jeter. I'll just say this. I have one word for Derek Jeter. He was a winner. Period. That's it. He was just a winner. But I want to hear your thoughts because obviously Jeter, came up during when you were young, when you started to like the Yankees. And I know you were a Mariano guy probably a little bit more, but Jeter definitely just represented those Yankee teams. So I'm going to keep quiet. Anxious to hear your thoughts and your special stats on Jeter, now being inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so I will start out. Yeah, Derek Jeter kind of I think I said it earlier this way. He kind of hits the nostalgia a lot. I think especially for a lot of people my age. Because he really did epitomize winning. I watched a little bit of his speech, and I liked one of the things that he said, where he was saying, "Yeah, I think I never had to worry about my teammates because they always had one goal in mind: to win more than anybody else, and we did." And I think it really does epitomize who he was as a player. And I think also just the idea of him hustling and him being very consistent is something that I think I really admire about him. As a player, he was always the guy that would work the hardest. Weak ground ball to second base, he was always the guy running down as hard as he could.
Mm-hmm.
And really, aside from kind of towards the end of his career with a couple of injuries, and then I remember that, I don't remember which year it was, maybe 2003, when he slid into third base and messed up his shoulder and was out for a little bit.
On opening day that year. Yeah, that was opening night against Toronto. I remember that. Yeah.
But I remember that one was aside from that, the guy was always out there. I saw obviously they were showing highlights earlier with his iconic jumping, throwing his scoop around first base. I remember us watching that game against the A's and both just being like, whoa, how did that happen?
That was unbelievable.
Or 2000, I think it was 2004, his famous diving into the stands and coming up bloodied. You could go on and on about Derek Jeter moments. And I think just as a player in general, you can tell he has a lot of respect when guys like Michael Jordan was there at his Hall of Fame ceremony, Patrick Ewing.
Wow.
Obviously all of the Yankees from the 90s, whether you're talking Bernie or Posada, who's probably sitting there, both of them waiting hey, we should have been in there too. But Mariano was there obviously, but I think it just kind of shows how much he meant just to sports in general. You look at it, no one really has a bad thing to say about. It's funny, he also took a shot at the one guy that didn't vote for him. He had said, yeah, thank you for all those that voted for me, except for, the one guy that didn't. But I think just in general, you look at Jeter, he never had an issue with a very brutal New York media. I hate to do this comparison, but Javi Baez has been here for a month and a half, and he's had a lot.
Jeter knew how to handle the media. He didn't say much. He would say a lot, and it would be nothing. But he knew what he was doing there. He was a terrible interview. Whenever somebody would interview him, I'm like, oh man, let me just turn. If there's an interview with Derek Jeter, he's not gonna tell us anything. But go ahead.
Yeah. And I think that you look at a lot of guys, they have at least the one controversy. I think of Randy Johnson when he first came to New York and he was bullying the cameraman that was kind of getting in his face. like everyone usually has their one thing. I think Jeter's biggest thing would have been him skipping the All-Star game. But like, I mean, guys do that all the time anyway. And the guy went to 14, so I don't really blame him. But let me get into some of these facts. Because some of these stats I think will be very surprising to you. Because like Derek Jeter as a player is, I think, obviously he's very tremendous. Like I could go through his career, but like, I mean, everyone knows it's very iconic. So let's see here. I have it up here. All right. So first, he never failed to reach base in 3 consecutive games during his combined 2,905 regular season and postseason games.
What?
So he never had a stretch of missing base for more than 3 games.
Oh, that is amazing. Wow.
The next thing. So the Yankees were never sub 500 during any 162 span of games played by Derek Jeter. So whenever he was on there, if you take any span from like this date to 162 games later, the Yankees were always above 500.
Wow.
Throughout his 20-year career, Derek Jeter only played 1 game at Yankee Stadium where they were mathematically eliminated. And that was, ironically, his final game there.
Wow. Wow.
Over his career, Derek Jeter played in 158 postseason games. So essentially the equivalent, like he played a full season essentially.
Yeah.
And basically his numbers were the same. And in those games, in his postseason games, he had 200 hits, 20 home runs, 18 stolen bases, and 111 runs scored.
Wow.
Only 4 other shortstops in the regular season can claim that they've even done that. It's an odd list, but I'll still read it off for you. A-Rod, who's up for the Hall of Fame next year. Nomar Garciaparra, who we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Hanley Ramirez. And another guy I think that we've kind of forgotten is coming up. He's actually on the ballot next year, Jimmy Rollins.
Huh. That'll be interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. Also, only 3 players in the history of baseball have played in more winning games or played in games that their team has won more than Derek Jeter. I don't have the number. I think it was like 1,700 something. So only Carly Yastrzemski, Pete Rose, and Hank Aaron have played in more games that their team has won. And I think, I don't know this offhand, but I would bet good money that they've all played in a lot more games in general than Derek Jeter did.
Wow. Wow.
All right. Last one I have here is that he truly was a guy that finished strong. Out of all of the Hall of Famers, he actually has the 3rd most plate appearances in his final season. He had well over 600. And also, I believe, I'd have to double check this, but I think he has the most starts of any player ever playing only the shortstop position. Because like you look at a lot of Hall of Famers, they'll play a premier defensive position for most of their career, but then like kind of towards the end, they'll go to a place like first base or they'll go to the outfield or whatever. Like even like Jorge Posada, catching all those years, a lot of his last few years, he played a lot more DH than he did catcher.
Yeah.
Which I know that like that didn't rub right for a lot of people, but also A-Rod, you look at him, he moved. Now, granted, he was probably a better defensive shortstop than Jeter when he first came over, but like a lot of guys, they don't usually play the same position the way that Jeter did. Like it was, I don't know. I don't know if I could say, I could probably go on for a while about Jeter, but it's amazing.
It is absolutely incredible. There's a lot, as you said, I had no idea of. And I think a lot of just the average everyday fan didn't have an idea of. So put you on the spot a little bit. Favorite Jeter moment? Because I think the 20 home runs doesn't do justice. He hit so many big ones. I mean, from the Diamondbacks to, oh my gosh, Game 4 with the Mets, the Orioles, and the thing is that, I think he had so many at-bats too, because while the Yankees have a couple of World Series sweeps, right? Even when they got to the World Series and they swept like the Braves and the Padres, those rounds, those first couple of rounds were always really, really tough. I mean, whether they were playing the Red Sox or the Orioles or the Twins, even the A's. I mean, they just, they never did it easy. They never went to a postseason where they were like, they just, swept 3, then 4 and 4. And Jeter was just right in the middle of that. But what's your iconic one? If you had to name one, what's one iconic one?
One is tough. Well, you kind of stole a couple that I was going to mention. The 2001, the home run in the walk-off. What was that, game 4, game 5?
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think probably just because of the significance to me personally, probably the 2001 against the Mets, the leadoff.
Thank you.
Also, like, I think one of the ones that kind of sticks out to me, it's kind of weird that this one sticks out, but also his 2012, because actually, yeah, his 2012 when I think he broke his ankle going for like a ground ball or something like that against the Tigers. It's not so much that like he got hurt. That was actually like his last postseason game. But I remember that, especially that playoffs, everyone was horrible. Nick Swisher was like 1 for 30. A-Rod was getting booed and getting benched for Raul Ibanez. I remember they got swept by the Tigers. Everyone batted like 100, 150, except for Derek Jeter, who batted 300.
Wow.
But if I'm picking one moment, I would probably say either the 2000 World Series, the leadoff home run, or the 2001, the flip.
Yeah. Wow. It's just so many. I'm with you. I don't know. I can't say the 2000 World Series. I'm sorry. That was huge. Yeah, I think that flip really just epitomized the type of player he was. How anything at all costs to win. I mean, I've never seen anybody even attempt that before or even since. Who would think that I got to speed this throw up a little bit because it's not going to get it. And Jeremy Giambi not sliding. I mean, and it was just unbelievable. And what was that also? Oh, didn't Oakland have like a 2-0 lead? They won the first 2 games in New York, so here they have to travel across country. That changed the series 100%. That changed that series around. It wasn't the final, I think, on that game was 1-0, if I remember right.
Yep, and Andy Pettitte, I believe, won that one.
Yeah, who's another guy who should be in the Hall of Fame, but that's a whole other story. Jeter is definitely one of the greatest. I mean, what you look for in terms of being that winner. I mean, he just epitomized that. Did A-Rod have better stats as a shortstop or even Nomar for several years? Yeah, but stats don't tell the story. I mean, when you're able to perform year in and year out, and make no mistake about it, the World Series is still big, right? But in that time in the 90s and the 2000s, I mean, the World Series was watched by a lot more people. I hate to say that, and it was just, like 96 when they got back there after so many years of not being in the World Series, against the Braves. You think about the pressure cooker that it was, so an amazing career and well deserved. He should have been a unanimous selection. But didn't the guy like miss his glasses or something like that? Wasn't there a story behind that? The guy wasn't it by accident that the guy didn't vote for him? Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, I forgot exactly. Let's see if I can look it up real quick. It wasn't something where like the guy because there was some I saw because of course social media and you look at people writing comments. There are some people that are like, oh well, Derek Jeter doesn't deserve the Hall of Fame. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, come on.
Like he just alone, he has the 6 most hits in history.
I'll say this last thing, because the Yankees throughout history have been hated by, even New Yorkers, right, or Met fans, or but certainly around the country, like in Boston and Baltimore, places like that, people hate the Yankees. Those Yankee teams that Jeter was on, and Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada, Andy Pettitte, you can go on, Paul O'Neill. If you were a baseball fan, you found it very hard not to like those teams. It's just, even the Yankee teams in the 70s, they had Reggie Jackson, Thurman Munson, guys like that, Goose Gossage. Fans hated those guys, Only people in New York liked Reggie Jackson back then. But it would be hard pressed when I would get into a discussion. I'm a Met fan, but how can you not admire the way this team plays the game? People would finally say, yeah, you know what? You're right. Bernie Williams, what a player. Derek Jeter, how could you not like these guys? They played baseball the way that it was kind of meant to be played, So, all right. So while you're looking that up, you find, I think it was a mistake. I think he lost his glasses or something like that. And he filled in the wrong player, something like he didn't mean, if I remember right, I think it was Jeter. He didn't mean to leave him off or not vote for him.
No one actually ever came forward and said that. If I remember right, so whoever it is, they stayed anonymous. I think who you're thinking of is with Griffey, because there were only three guys that didn't vote for Griffey. Also, come on, you're telling me that Ken Griffey Jr. is not a Hall of Famer? Right. And if I remember right with him, the one guy said, I'm not voting for anyone in the steroid era. Right. Another guy forgot his ballot or something like that. Or forgot to add him
surgery or something, and he was under the deadline and he filled in the wrong guy. So it wasn't Jeter. Okay. So we don't know who it was.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. We got a few minutes left. Let's pivot. Thursday, tomorrow starts the NFL season. You were dead on last year. Great predictions last year. Who do you got? Let's start with the AFC. Who do you have for the AFC?
I'm gonna be a little bit bold here, but also I have this now on the record. So if it happens, then boom, you heard it here first. Well, not probably first, but I think it might be the Browns' year.
Wow.
A lot of people I've seen.
That's a good one. I lost your sound. Hold on one second. It might not be you, so I'm gonna switch you to here. All right, say something now, Ken. No, hold on. We are back. Yep, sorry, we're back. Go ahead.
So as far as the Browns go, a lot of people have them as the best roster in football, 1 through 53. And one of their biggest weaknesses was their secondary, and they've really improved it. So I don't know if it's just kind of the Cleveland in me. First of all, I will say, if the Browns make the Super Bowl, it'll be bigger here than it was when the Cavs won the finals. Even if they don't win the Super Bowl, honestly, even if they make the if they make the AFC title game, it'll be so big. People got so excited when they made it as far as they did. So I'm still going with the Browns. I think obviously Kansas City is still a really good team, but also what killed them last year was a great defense, and the Browns have a really good front four. Myles Garrett will be on the short list of people that they see as defensive player of the year. So, and also they have a great running game. They have a great offensive line. They have the formula to win. So that's going to be my pick.
Okay. I think that's a great, bold pick. I'll be really quick with my AFC, and I'm going with the Titans. I think that they've got such a great team. I think they didn't make a ton of changes, but they drafted really well. I think Derrick Henry is healthy. He'll have a huge year. I like Tannehill. I think he'll really continue to come into his own. The Chiefs to me are the best team. I mean, the Chiefs and Browns, if they play each other, that'd be must-see TV. But I think
They're week 1.
They're week 1. Oh wow, okay. So I
Yeah.
think that the Titans though are going to sneak in there. I'm going to go with a little bit of a different pick and go with the Titans. NFC, who you got?
This is I guess neither of these are that bold. It would be easy to go Bucks again, but also it's really hard to go back to back. I think that you're going to see something that's similar to the '98 Bulls with the Last Dance. Actually, it became a big thing because both the quarterback and the wide receiver tweeted out a Pippen MJ, or they put it on Instagram. I think it's gonna be the Packers. I think that
Wow.
they I think they put it together. They
Yeah.
get everything good, and then the band breaks up. Rodgers goes somewhere else. Devontae Adams might follow him. I don't know.
Okay. It's a good one. Packers Browns. Okay. NFC, I've always thought Matthew Stafford was one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't know why Detroit never got him more weapons, especially after the wide receiver retired a few years ago. So I think they already had a high-powered offense. They've got a really good defense. I think they have a Super Bowl type coach. I'm going with the Rams. I think that the Rams will make a nice comeback this year. And I think that that they will also, not a lot of people talking about them, but I think just the acquisition of Stafford is just a great acquisition. I think the guy's played long enough. And I think that he will. I think that he'll show that he's a winner. Finally. So I'm going Rams. I'm going Rams and Titans. Mark it down. Kenny's got Packers, Browns. You nailed it last year. So I'm guessing you might nail it again. Those are a couple of really, really good picks. All right. So listen, this has been fun. We've got the season starting tomorrow. NFL, the best time of the year, man. Pennant races, football starting. You can't beat it. And if you're a tennis fan, U.S. Open, you can't beat it. So Kenny, with that, take us home.
Yeah, so watch some pennant race stuff, and I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe the Browns and Chiefs are actually your Sunday afternoon, like the 4:25 slot.
Game. I love that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but whatever you're gonna be doing, enjoy week 1 of the NFL. But for now, this is Kenny Squared End.
Kenny.
With sports on the positive tip. We will see you guys next week.
All right. Awesome.